In 2011, a construction worker swings a hammer into a cracked wall under the old palace of the Ottoman sultans in Istanbul. He expects dust, maybe rats, a useless storage room. The wall breaks. Behind it is a small hidden chamber that's not on any blueprint. No tiles, no gold, just bare stone. And on that stone, marks, dozens of small crosses carved by hand, a tiny bird scratched into one corner, and underneath it, in shaky Latin letters, Lux in tenebris lucet, the light shines in the darkness. Latin, inside the heart of an Islamic imperial palace. The men in that room stopped talking. They've just found something nobody was supposed to see. Because those scratches were left by people the empire tried very hard to erase. And here's the part that isn't legend. In 2011, restorers really did break into a sealed underground chamber at Topkapi and find Christian symbols and Latin scratched into the walls. We don't know their names. We don't know their faces. But we know this: someone trapped under that palace refused to vanish quietly. To figure out who they might have been and why the Ottomans chose a punishment worse than death, we have to go back 500 years. This is Crowned Secrets, where buried stories get dragged back into the light. If you want more hidden history they never taught you in school, subscribe now, because this story was never meant to reach your screen. The year is 1453. Constantinople falls. A city that stood for over 1,000 years goes down in 53 days of cannon fire, betrayal, and starvation. Hagia Sophia, the biggest church in the Christian East, is stripped in hours. Crosses ripped down, icons smashed, mosaics plastered over. Its bells are torn out and melted. Within a week, the Islamic call to prayer echoes from the same dome where Christian hymns have been sung for 9 centuries. Sultan Mehmed II understands something most conquerors never do. Killing people is loud. Bodies in the streets create stories. Stories create martyrs. Martyrs create resistance. If you want to control a population long-term, you don't just crush them, you edit them. Churches become mosques or warehouses. Monasteries are converted, relocated, or quietly emptied. Local elites are replaced. Old rituals are pushed out by new ones. On paper, it looks clean. New tax lists, new titles, new officials. In reality, it's one thing: erasing who people used to be. And to be clear, this isn't unique to the Ottomans. Every empire that gets big enough learns the same trick. This one just left unusually stubborn scratches in stone. By 1470, this strategy has already been tested on Greek monasteries, Serbian convents, Armenian churches. Some sites are turned into Islamic institutions. Some are abandoned. Some just stop showing up in the records at all. One of those places is a small convent in the mountains of Thessaly, St. Catherine's. High in those mountains stands a stone convent most maps don't even bother to name. Inside, 23 nuns live the same routine every day. Pray, work, care for the sick from nearby villages. Repeat. They know the empire is expanding. They've heard about Constantinople, but they're far from any capital. No army has ever bothered to climb up here. Until now. One morning, they kneel in the chapel, repeating the same prayers they have said for years. Today, the air feels wrong. Their mouths move, but the words feel heavy, like they're saying goodbye without admitting it. Outside the walls, the horizon isn't glowing with sunrise. It's red with banners. The Ottoman army is coming up the mountain. At the front stands the abbess, Sister Eleni. She grips a silver crucifix so tight her fingers hurt. That cross has outlived plagues, famines, and 3 generations. She thinks in simple terms. Worst case, we die for our faith. We become martyrs. We win in heaven. She has no idea the empire outside her door has learned to do something worse than killing. Just after dawn, the first cannon fires. It does not aim at the chapel. It aims at the bell tower. The blast is brutal. Stone explodes. Iron screams. The bell that has called this valley to prayer for more than a century shatters in mid-swing. Pieces of metal and stone rain down into the herb garden where the nuns grow plants for medicine. The same hands that used to bandage wounds now claw at their ears. Sister Eleni doesn't run. She stands up, raises her crucifix, and does the only thing she knows how to do. Kyrie eleison. Lord, have mercy. Her voice shakes, but it doesn't break. One nun joins in, then another. Soon 23 voices are singing over the sound of cannon and falling stone. Empires do not listen to songs. They listen to obedience. By midday, the wooden gate is cracked open. Ottoman soldiers push into the courtyard. Swords stay in their sheaths. Instead, they carry ledgers, scrolls, ink, and quills. They walk slowly, looking, counting, recording. To them, this is not holy ground. It's an asset list. How many rooms? How much land? How many women? A translator steps forward, a Greek man pulled from a nearby town to read out the orders in his own language. His hands shake as he unrolls the scroll. He reads, "By order of Sultan Mehmed II, all subjects of conquered territories must submit to the Sultan's authority. Those who convert to Islam will be protected. Those who refuse will be treated as rebels." It doesn't say, "We will kill you." It doesn't have to. Refusing the Sultan is refusing reality. Sister Eleni steps forward. She doesn't yell. She doesn't bargain. "Tell your Sultan that our lives already belong to a king he cannot touch. We have nothing left to give him." The officer in charge, Hassan Pasha, doesn't strike her. He doesn't scream. He smiles, because he knows what comes next. This isn't about a glorious massacre. It's about turning believers into warnings. That night, the nuns are locked inside their own chapel. No food, no water, no light. Outside, they hear soldiers joking, eating, arguing. For most people, that sound breaks you. For women who spend whole nights in cold, silent prayer, it's familiar. Day 1, they pray out loud. Day 2, their voices are gone. They mouth the words. By day 3, some can't stand. Their lips are cracked open, hands shaking. Then the door opens. A servant comes in, carrying fresh bread and clear water. He sets it down in the middle of the chapel. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't look them in the eyes. He walks out and locks the door again. The smell of the bread almost hurts. The youngest sisters stare at it like starving animals. Every instinct in their bodies screams, "Eat." Old Sister Theodora breaks the silence. "They want us hungry, so we're grateful when we give in." Eleni looks at the bread, at the faces around her, at the cracks in the walls. "Then we don't give in," she says. They don't touch it. From the courtyard, Hassan Pasha watches the chapel door. He's not shocked. He's measuring. On the third day, Hassan goes inside with the translator. "You are not criminals," he says. "You are not enemies. You are simply wrong. The Sultan is merciful. He offers you new names, new lives, protection." He waits. "Or," he adds, "you can come with us to Constantinople. The Sultan will hear your case himself. Maybe he will be moved by your faith. But the road is long. The weak don't survive it." He's not warning them. He's explaining the program. Eleni looks at the women around her. Some are barely conscious. Some are praying with their eyes closed. Some are just staring at the floor. She turns back to him. "We will walk," she says. The smile snaps back onto his face. "Good," Hassan answers. "We leave at dawn." At sunrise, the women are tied with rope and led out of the gates. 23 nuns, bound in a line, heading down the mountain with no carts and no animals. The road itself is the punishment. Blisters, burned skin, swollen ankles, dry throats. On the second day, Sister Irene, 62 years old, legs wrecked by arthritis and years of kneeling, collapses. She tries to get up. Her body refuses. Magdalena, barely 20, and another nun hook their arms under hers and drag her step by step for hours. That night, Irene lies on the ground, eyes half open, breathing in short, broken gasps. By morning, she's dead. They bury her with their bare hands at the side of the road. No tools, no cross. Just a hole in the dirt and a few rushed words. The soldiers watch but don't interfere. Hassan opens his ledger, dips his pen, and writes one line. Religious captive deceased. Total, 22. No name, no story. Just a smaller number. Days blur together. Dust, heat, rope cutting into skin. By the time they reach the port of Volos about a week later, only 18 are still on their feet. But their faces look different. They're not begging. They're not bargaining. They walk like people who already chose what they are willing to lose. In Volos, the nuns are loaded onto a war galley. This is not a ferry. It's a prison that floats. They are chained to benches, wrists and ankles locked to iron rings. On the ship's manifest, they are not listed as Sister Eleni, Sister Magdalena, Sister Theodora. They are listed like this: Religious captives, female, 18. Destination, Imperial household. Purpose, domestic service and conversion. Service is a nice word that hides a lot of ugly possibilities. The voyage takes 12 days. Storms hammer the ship. Salt water hits their cracked lips like acid. Women who have never seen the sea vomit until nothing comes out. At night, the hull creaks. Chains scrape wood. Somewhere in the dark, Magdalena psalms under her breath. Her voice is barely there. Still, other prisoners, Greeks, Serbs, Italians, turn their heads just to listen. For a few minutes at a time, they are not cargo. They are still human beings, making noise the empire didn't ask for. When the war galley finally enters the Bosphorus, the skyline of Constantinople rises in front of them. Domes, walls, minarets. For centuries, people called it the city of the world's desire. For these women, it's a trap they can't escape. From the docks, the nuns are marched through busy streets. Merchants stop what they're doing. Soldiers stare. Kids, Christian nuns in chains are rare, even here. Near Hagia Sophia, once the greatest church in Christendom, now a mosque, they're ordered to kneel as the call to prayer echoes over them. One of the sisters, "We are home, but it is no longer ours." They're taken into Topkapi Palace, but not to gardens, fountains, or glittering halls. They are taken down. Stone steps, low ceilings, damp corridors that smell like mold and ash. They're led into a service level that doesn't exist on tourist maps. Storage rooms, servants' quarters, dead-end corridors. Somewhere behind a fake wall, there is a small, windowless room. That room is where they sleep, where they're counted, where they disappear from public view. By day, they clean floors, wash linens, carry water, stoke fires. They walk past rooms where powerful men eat and sleep, and those men will never know their names. On the records, they're just staff. At night, when the palace finally quiets, the women squeeze through a loose stone into the small, hidden chamber we started with. This is their chapel now. They have no priest, no Bible, no altar. Everything they have lives in their heads and in their fingers. They rebuild their prayers from memory. Verses come out broken and mixed, but they don't care. They sing hymns so softly, the sound barely makes it across the room. They steal crumbs of bread from the kitchens and drops of water from the cisterns, and use them for a secret communion. And with anything sharp they can get, pottery shards, bits of metal, even their own nails, they start carving into the walls. Crosses, small ones, rough ones, again and again. One cross for each night they're still there. One cross for each sister who suddenly doesn't show up to work and never comes back. Magdalena carves a tiny bird with open wings next to them. Then she scratches 23 vertical lines into the stone, one for every nun who left the convent. Only 11 lines are finished. The rest break off halfway. The cuts are deep and shaky, like someone was pulled away mid-stroke. At some point, under all the crosses and lines, a new carving appears. Lux in tenebris lucet. The light shines in the darkness. They know the empire owns their bodies. They know their names will never be written in any official history. This sentence and these scratches are the only way they can scream, "We were here. We believed. You did not erase us completely." Ottoman documents from the following years mention cleansings of palace staff. People who are too old, too sick, too resistant. Removed, replaced, disposed. No list of names, no mention of nuns from Thessaly. No graveyard we can point to. On paper, the women of St. Catherine simply stop existing. But stone keeps secrets paper doesn't. In that hidden room under Topkapi, the crosses are still there. The bird is still there. The Latin sentence is still there. We don't have a neat signed confession that says, "These were the nuns of St. Catherine." Maybe they were. Maybe they were other Christian captives, servants, slaves, women stolen from all over the Balkans. But the exact name almost doesn't matter. Whoever they were, they understood one thing very clearly. If an empire wants you gone, you leave your mark where it can't control it. On stone, in memory, in faith. The Ottoman Empire lasted nearly 600 years. It redrew maps, turned cathedrals into mosques, ruled from the gates of Vienna to the deserts of Arabia. Its sultans are dust. Its armies are gone. Its laws don't apply to anyone anymore. But in the basement of its own palace, the scratches left by a handful of captured women are still doing their job. They are proof that the empire did not erase everyone it tried to erase. The nuns of St. Catherine, if it was them, didn't win anything an empire would respect. They didn't get pardoned. They didn't lead a revolt. They didn't walk out of that palace alive. But 500 years later, strangers on the internet are saying their prayers out loud, repeating their Latin, staring at the same crosses they carved in the dark. That's not a happy ending, but it is a kind of revenge. Because here's the brutal bottom line. The Ottomans deleted their names from every record they controlled. They controlled the palace. They controlled the archives. They do not control this: your screen, your attention, your memory. If you click away and forget this story, the empire still gets what it wanted: silence. If you don't, it doesn't. If this shook you, if it made you angry at how easy it is to turn people into numbers, don't let it stop at, "Wow, crazy story." Like the video, share it, and subscribe to Crowned Secrets so more buried stories have a chance to crawl out of the dark. Some people were meant to disappear. These women were on that list. They didn't disappear. Not completely. Not anymore. Because now you know what was done to them, and you decide what happens to their story next.